Welcome back to Climate Responsive Architecture videos, Unit 4, part number 2. We were actually seeing about daylighting techniques, and about ERC, SC and IRC, about the daylight factors. Now we are proceeding to the next topic called as the window wall ratio. This window wall ratio is nothing but a ratio of the fenestration area to the gross exterior wall area. So for example, if this is the height of the room, maybe the height of the room is like 3 meters. This is the width of the room, maybe the width of the room is about 5 meters, and this is the window. So the window, let it be like the height, let it be 1 meter, and the width of the window, let it be 2 meters. So 1 into 2 is 2 meters divided by the fenestration area or the vertical fenestration area to the gross exterior wall area. So it's almost like 3 into 5 is 15. So almost 15. So what happens is you get almost like 13.3 or 0.13. So 0.13 into 100. So it's almost like 13 percentage. Okay. So 13.3 percentage. 13.3 percentage. So this window wall ratio is a very interesting ratio. Which you must understand, it is only for one side of the wall. So for example, if this is the room and this is the north facing wall, we imagine that this is going to be the north and this is going to be the south, this is going to be the east and west. So we understand that there is a north facing wall, and that north facing wall we have to calculate the window wall ratio. So we understand the amount of daylight which will fall inside the room because of the opening size and because of its ratio. So generally we know that the daylight factor which is needed is almost like 2% and 2% to 4%, which needs a sufficient daylight inside the room. The same manner, this window wall ratio is also necessary to calculate for the daylighting levels and also the radiation levels. So the daylighting level is also calculated by means of window wall ratio, and also the radiation levels also will be calculated by means of this window wall ratio. So this is a very important topic when we start a sustainable design. So we generally note down the orientations, then we come into the fenestration. So when you come to fenestration, this window wall ratio will play a major part in terms of determining your design elements like such as walls and windows, etc. So once more we'll see this window wall ratio is equal to the gross exterior wall area divided by the window area divided by the gross exterior wall area. Next we are going to see a small simulation which is done in Ecotect to understand how daylighting can be seen in Ecotect. So you can see on the northern side there is a little larger window, on the eastern side there is a vertical longer window, on the southern side there is a longer window, but it is a small window. The sill level is a little higher. So the daylighting levels you can clearly see, and it's indicated by means of this. So there is some kind of internally reflected light which we saw in the previous slides, IRC. So these are the internally reflected lights. We have the ERC, externally reflected lights. Since there are no neighboring buildings, then not much of externally reflected light is there. We get sufficient daylights. The sky component is almost lesser because maybe for the whole year it is giving an average. So again, the Ecotect can give us a lot of values by means of units, etc., and it is actually giving the daylight percentage. So you can see like it is almost like 1.2%. Outside it is 27%. Here it is less than 4.4%, and so on. And here it is almost like 20.4%. You can see the contour lines, how the daylighting is distributed because of the reflections. And this is a three-dimensional view. It is showing you how the daylight factor is actually higher near the windows and lower near the areas where there is no sufficient windows for the lighting. So most importantly, this daylighting is a considerable factor where the techniques of daylighting can be taken care of by means of your window sizes, by means of your window properties, window elements like glass and maybe the sunshades, etc. So this is a very important element which you're supposed to follow in terms of daylighting. So next one is the technical terms such as the transmission of light. So the light incident on any object can be distributed in three ways. The first one is the reflectance, absorptance, and the transmittance. The transmittance is applicable only for transparent or translucent objects such as glass or maybe some acrylic sheet, etc. Whereas any object which is opaque will have a certain amount of absorptance and reflectance, and the absorptance and reflectance value will depend on the color and the surface, etc. So the color is dependent, the surface is dependent, dependent on all these external parameters and also the properties. The light will reflect or absorb. So if you see the types of reflection, there are two types. One is called as the specular and one is the diffuse reflection. The specular reflection is nothing but a reflection which is on a light reflected surface or a matte surface, where the specular reflection is directly. So if it's a glossy surface, it is going to be a direct reflection, and if it's a little bit of matte surface or if it's a little bit of a rough texture, so you will get a lot of diffused reflection. So depending on the functionality of the project and depending on the surface of the material, the reflections may differ according to the material and also the color. So the reflection of light is very important. We have to understand what type of reflection is actually available because of the daylight, and you need to understand the function and give better solutions in terms of workspace and terms of residence, etc. So we have an opaque non-metal, so there will be an incident light, and there is a little amount of specular reflection which is little bright, and there is a little bit of diffuse reflection because it's a non-metal. And if it's a metal, it's having a little bit of higher polish, so there is an incident light, and diffuse reflection is also there, little bit of reflection. But specular reflection is little it is inclined, or maybe it is lined because of the metal's shiny surface. Translucent material or transparent material is nothing but glass. You have the incident light. There is a lot of diffuse reflection and diffuse transmission because the glass is going to diffuse the whole light and it is going to distribute it by means of from inside to outside. So there is a little bit of specular reflection because of the glass. So if you see, wood is a opaque non-metal which can actually give you a little bit of diffuse reflection and little bit of specular reflection. Wood, paper and fabric, and there is a lot of absorption also because of the wood, paper and fabric properties. Whereas the metal is glossy, and maybe there is aluminium or iron, so these glossy items will actually reflect light, which will not even allow the heat to come inside also. So that is also very important. So maybe the metals can be used to reflect light and also heat also because of its color and because of the glossy properties. But again, the metal also has got its own properties which can also conduct heat. So we have to understand what type of metal and understand what type of function which we are going to use, the functionality of the project, etc. And glass, if you see glass, if you see in European countries or if you see in the northern hemisphere, more of northern hemisphere will use glass because they need more of heat and also they need more of daylighting. Since we have already told you, like, the design sky illuminance is less in most of the European countries and most of the countries in Russia, etc. So the glass is extensively used in the northern part of the globe. Whereas the middle of the globe, the glass can be avoided because we have sufficient daylighting. Because of the reflected lightings, we can have a lot of daylighting, and the heat also can be minimized. So now we will see an example, a perfect example of a building which is going to show you how the difference is seen because of the reflectiveness of a material. So if you see the topmost material, it's purely in white color and there is a lot of gray tones. There is a lot of hue, and the gray tone is also there in the floor. So it is almost like a monochromatic or an achromatic scheme. So these light colors are actually reflecting more light. It's a small space, you can understand. This space is reflecting, although there is little bit of artificial light. This is again reflecting because of a lot of components of white color, and it is getting reflected, and the space is looking little larger. The second example is a dark Kota stone or a dark stone which is actually here, and again the walls, the brickwork which is done is also dark color. Of course it's going to give you a lot of daylight during the day, but when it is evening, the daylighting levels might become little lesser, but you can see the reflection ranges are very lesser than this picture. So the reflection is lesser because it's a darker color, so the reflection is little lesser, and the daylighting is levels are little lesser because of the darker tones. So if you see the typical reflectance factors, which is taken from a book called Heating, Cooling, Lighting by author Norbert Lechner, this will clearly indicate you that what are the reflectance percentage. You can see aluminium 90 to 98% is reflected, grass 10%, of course paint black only 4% is reflected, white it reflects almost 70 to 90%. That means the black color is going to absorb a lot of heat or absorb a lot of light, etc. So the light is not reflected back. So accordingly you can decide what type of building and what type of color can be chosen for each and every room. Maybe there are a few pictures. As an architect or a designer, you have to understand how a visual perception of a dark room and a light shaded room will look. So if you see, like these are rooms which are having a little bit of dark colors and dark tones, the furniture is a little dark. Of course you have a dark blinds here. Okay, so this room looks little darker and it looks little smaller also. The perception may vary, but according to the visual perception it looks little smaller. Maybe here again in another classroom, a typical classroom with little bit of darker floors and darker furnitures, so it looks little smaller because of the light reflectance and absorptance. And the second picture, there are more of light colors. There's a lot of glass which is used, and there's a little bit of light shelf also. So these light shelf are also actually reflecting a little bit of lot of daylight, which is actually giving you a lot of light here. So the light colors reflect more light, and visually the space looks larger. So now coming back to the next design methods or applications of daylighting. As an architect or designer, we have to understand how and what type of functional space are we going to design, and according to those functional space we can know how to minimize or maximize the windows to achieve better daylighting. So the objectives and parameters are: the first objective is the orientation of the building. So we must know which orientation are we going to provide the windows: north, south, east and west. So that's the first main objective. And of course we have the outcome because of the objectives. When you have these objectives and if you provide the design, the outcomes will be better. Then the functionality of the space, if it's a school, residence, etc. So according to the functionality of the space, the design methods and applications may differ. According to the geometry and scale of fenestration, the design methods may differ. Material plays a vital role, and because of the material there's a lot of reflectance. Color plays a vital role, texture plays a vital role. Then after all these elements, the technique such as the skylights, the clear stories, etc., those techniques play a vital role to bring in a lot of daylight. Next one, we are going to a little bit term towards our methods of daylighting, which is more technical. So we have certainly two types of lighting, which is the top lighting and one is the side lighting. So in the top lighting we have the skylights, we have the clear story, we have the sawtooth lighting, which is also called as the north lighting, or we also call it as the industrial lighting. Then we have the side lighting, which is almost from the wall. So the top lighting is almost from the roof, and the side lighting is almost from the wall elements. So we have to understand what type of side lighting and how much of lighting can be achieved because of the top lighting and side lighting. So if you see top lighting, we have sawtooth lighting, we have courtyard. It's a very important design aspect which can give you a lot of lighting. Then we have atrium or skylight, which is generally there in your shopping malls. If it's a shopping mall, it's going to be atrium, and maybe in a smaller sections we can have skylight. We have light wells and light pipe. So the clear story section is open on top, and we get sufficient lighting from the topmost level. So maybe there is a little bit of glare also. The glare also can be minimized by means of these surfaces. Again, we have roof lights, which is actually something like a factory light, where the factory needs a lot of light, and of course you can provide windows here if we have a lot of machinery is there, so we try to provide windows on the top portions. Courtyard is a very interesting traditional idea or concept, where it's an open space in the middle of the dwelling. Generally it was in the middle of the dwelling, then it came to the palaces, etc., which is a safe place where only the people from inside the house or the family members will use it, which gives a sufficient daylight, which can be direct or diffused, which gives sufficient daylight to the corridors and also to the rooms which are adjacent to the corridors, which gives a diffused daylight to the rooms which are very adjacent to this. This courtyard principle is very important in terms of daylighting and also in terms of ventilation. So we can understand like what is the height of the courtyard and what is the width of the courtyard, the length of the courtyard. So accordingly the light variation is also differing. So when you go for an in-depth study, then we go for the types of the courtyards, like what type of courtyards can be done in a hot and dry zone, what type of courtyards must be recommended in a warm humid zone or a composite zone, etc. So those things can be seen in the later divisions or later modules. Next we have the atrium or skylight. Atrium is actually an open space, almost like a courtyard. Okay, so atrium is an open space in the middle of the building or maybe on any side of the building, which is actually enclosed by a glass or acrylic sheet or any polycarbonate or transparent or translucent structure to give sufficient ambient and good lighting, so which provides an ambient lighting for the inner space. So generally what happens, the atrium gives a lot of diffused light and also sometimes a direct light. Of course the glass is going to give you a lot of diffused light, so maybe the glass is a clear glass or a tinted glass. It depends upon the type of or usage of the glass and depends on the orientation also. The major disadvantage would be it also creates heat gain due to the usage of glass on the roof. So generally if it's a tropical zone, the sun is almost overhead from 12 to 2:30, so it produces a lot of heat gain also. So we also have to be very comfortably or efficiently using the glass. In terms of using the glass, we can use an indented glass or a low E glass is recommended. So this is the second or third concept of getting daylight in terms of atrium or skylight. The next concept is the light well. As we know that due to the increase in housing demand, we generally go for apartments, and these apartments are something like a cluster of houses or cluster of dwellings which are closely packed together. So generally there is going to be a lot of insufficient lighting on the inside periphery. So outside periphery, of course, you will have a lot of lighting, but inside it is going to have a lesser lighting. So in order to provide a better lighting and also ventilation principles, we have something called as light well, which is a very smaller open space in any part of the building, enclosed by glass or even open to sky, which provides natural daylight for the adjacent spaces around it. So the large apartments or housing units generally will have pockets of open spaces which act as light wells. The next concept is of lighting is called as the light pipe. It's a new concept for something like a huge industrial areas where you need a lot of lighting, or maybe basements which you need a lot of lighting, or maybe even some kind of storage places where it is air conditioned but you need lighting, so sufficient lighting is needed. So we have a concept called light pipe, which is nothing but is of a UV stable light collector placed on top of the roof of the building, which collects sunlight from all the directions. So there's a collector which is kept on the top of the roof, and due to the direct incident radiation or direct incident light, the light travels inside the pipe and becomes diffused and actually comes as a diffused light. So we get a diffused light inside a room. The reflector system inside the pipe delivers the high illuminance with minimum light loss without color shift even on cloudy days. So this can give you a glare free light. So this is very important. Light pipe is very important. Maybe sometimes even light pipe may be a failure in some places. So if there are it's a overcast sky, if there's a very cloudy day, so the light pipe will not perform well. So in those times you have to have an automated system where you can actually convert or you can have a CFL bulb there, which can give you a better, or CFL or LEDs which can give you a better light when there is going to be a lot of cloudy weather conditions. So next one is side lighting. So we have a window with overhang, we have a window with shading, we have a window with light shelf, a window with small openings. So we'll see one by one. So generally, if you see, these are the types of windows. So generally, if you have the height of the window is almost like 5 meters, so it is 5 into 2.5. So if the height of the window increases, so the daylight inside the room also will increase. Maybe the direct light is more, and maybe the diffused light is little lesser. So the direct light is more and the diffused light is little lesser, so you get little bit of reflected light here. And if you have a overhang, the light is little minimized, the daylight is minimized, so you can just get a little bit of daylight here. And the next concept is mainly used for the commercial areas, where you have to provide a better daylighting, because you need to know they have something called as the task lighting, of course, but you need to provide them a lot of daylight to minimize the energy. So we have the light shelf concept, which we'll be seeing in the next few slides. So you get more sufficient lighting, or the reflected lighting, which is also glare free because of the light shelf. We have a screen which gives you diffused light, and it is also diffusing the views, of course. So if you want in a space where you want only a diffused light, you can use screens. So it can be a screen inside or outside, it can be blinds, or it can be rotatable screens, retractable screens, etc., wooden blinds. All these things can be used. Of course, we have louvers, which cuts off most of the radiation and gives you a lot of diffuse light, which is also very efficient in terms of countries and tropical areas. So maybe tropical areas, and also maybe in the northern hemisphere, more towards the United Kingdom and so on, where the sun's movement is extremely low. You have to cut the sun's radiation by means of louvers, and the diffuse light is also achieved. Then we have the vegetation or the bioscreen wall, where you can get you can actually get a partial light because of the summer vegetation, and the light can be more due to winter vegetation, because the vegetation withers away, and you get a better light during the winter. So if you see side lighting, there are a few pictures. As an architect or designer, you can understand. So it's a unilateral lighting section, which means there's a single section. Bilateral is two-sided sections, maybe it is one is large, one is smaller. We have a roof monitor light section, which is more equal, which is just a projected roof slab with light allowed on both the sides. So the roof monitor light section can be used somewhere in an art gallery, where you have to avoid a direct light to see the art. So maybe roof monitor sections can be used in art gallery, or maybe in few colder places where you cannot use a window, whereas you have to use just a roof monitor to get sufficient daylight. So that is one thing. Maybe in living rooms and residential spaces, it is more unique to use your bilateral sections. You have two windows, you get sufficient and ambient lighting. Your one window, you get certainly an amount of lighting in your unilateral lighting section. So we have windows with overhangs and shading. Generally, as we saw in the previous slides, that the sunshade is also going to act as an externally reflective component. So generally there is going to be an external reflectance here, and this also is going to reflect here and provide you externally reflected component. So if you have solar pergolas or maybe pergolas and even louvers, it is also going to give you a diffused light because of its reflective components. So these are the reflective components of ERC, externally reflected components. So windows with overhang and shading will also provide better light, better diffused light can be also seen. The light shelf, as we saw last few slides, so the light shelf is a better improvised daylighting technique. Okay, so for example, if there is no sunshade here, you get light here like this. So whereas if you have a light shelf, there is more amount of spread of daylight because of the light shelf, which actually reflects the light, because this light shelf is itself is a reflector. So you can see in this clear pictures the height of the windows here, so you get lighting here, and whereas if you have a light shelf, you get sufficient lighting here and it gets reflected to the ceiling and you get diffused light. So it's almost like 2.5 times the height of the window, you get sufficient daylight. And this is a clear picture which will indicate you about the light shelf techniques and technologies. So if you have an IT park, so generally there is a light shelf which gives you sufficient lighting to the ceiling and you get a reflected light, and you get a better task lighting, or you get a better lighting for the workspace task. The light shelf can differ in two types. One is the external light shelf and one is the external and internal light shelf. Maybe the external and internal light shelf can be even more better in terms of providing a larger area of diffuse light, so that can also become a perfect solution for your commercial areas. So light shelves are placed above eye level to prevent glare also, so that is also very important. And these light shelf will have an aluminium or something like a reflective component which will reflect more of the light component and gives you more of light. Very innovative solutions have been seen by or done by some of the art designers, etc. So this is a very small innovative solution which is done by Erskine Solar Project. The Solar Spectrum environmental artist, he has done something like a heliostat collector which collects the light and gives you a prismatic diffusion inside a room. So this is a very interesting component or very interesting design which can be done if it is according to the function, which can be also executed as per your creative works. There is again there are effect of windows and opening positions. We have to understand how a window position will affect the amount of daylight which is going to be penetrated inside the room. So for example, if you have a center opening, it's little lesser. The opening on top, it might be little higher. The opening on top ultimately higher. This opening is little more. The skylight opening gives you a lot of light. This also gives you a lot of light. This gives you a concentrated light. This gives you a reflective light on the ceiling and also on the wall. So now you have to decide as an architect or designer how you can provide design solutions of giving better fenestrations for achieving better daylight conditions. So we have next few slides we are going to see about the architects' passion for light, how the architects have gained their interest, and how have they executed their projects and their passion for light. So you can see this is a very interesting project which is called as the Church of Light by Tado Ando. It's also called as the Church of Light, so it gives you light. So you can understand the amount of large windows which is used here, and it's actually in Japan. Of course, it's in the northern. I think it is in the northern hemisphere. Maybe like what type of light is required. He has given the light also. The element of reflection is also considered, how it is reflected by means of material. So it's a very interesting project which you must go through. It's done by Tado Ando. The next interesting project is the Chapelle Notre Dame du Haut de Ronchamp. So the chapel is itself a huge chapel which is got a lot of small fenestrations which gives you a lot of projections of light, and this tapering which you can see, which also gives you a lot of reflection of light. You can actually see a curvilinear roof structure near the structure, so this also gives you a lot of light, reflected light. So there's a lot of diffused light at certain part of the day, maybe in the morning, maybe in the evening. So we have to understand what is the direction and really experience the architecture of Le Corbusier. So when you go to this place, then you can experience like what is the real essence of this architecture. Of course, we have some kind of cantilevered structures which tries to diffuse the amount of heat and also the amount of light which is giving you a lot of diffusion. So you have seen the light slit openings here. You can actually see just an opening here. There's an altar here. So this is a very interesting play or interesting configuration of light or day lighting. The next a new example, a modern example, is the Jubilee Church by Richard Mayer. very interesting architect who tries to show the buildings only in white color. So most of his buildings are white in color, and most of his buildings will use the aluminium panel or some kind of composite panel which tries to reflect light and give more daylight. So this is a very interesting church which gives you so much of ambient light. So this is a very interesting project done by an architect called Richard Mayer. Again, we have Louis Kahn, who is also an architect who we say he knows the essence of light, and he has provided a lot of windows and structures which gives you a lot of form which reflects the light. We have Philip Johnson. Of course, we know that he plays with glass. He has done a lot of glass structures, and these glass structures are being very important in giving us very good lighting essence in a building. We see some of the innovations here, and these are some of the innovations which you can see because of the lighting, and you as an architect or a designer must decide like what type of lighting should be provided in a building. Thank you. This is end of unit 4, part number 2. We will see you in unit number